Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Pitch Start Podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP, and of course, like, share, comment on this video, subscribe to the channel, most importantly, enable all notifications, of course, to receive all the updates, all the episodes of the podcast, and other content on this channel. Help us on social media, PSP follow on Twitter, and Pitch Start Pod on Instagram. Help us reach, of course, the 500 subscribers mark for the moment, that is. Let's start, of course, by talking about the Bundesliga. Of course, since yesterday we talked a little bit in the longest section again of the episode yesterday about the Premier League. So I decided to focus more on the other leagues. I'm going to be starting from the Bundesliga, which is returning today on Saturday with 7 matches on the card, of course, including the top two competitors alongside Bayern on the top of the table, of course. We're talking here about Bayer Leverkusen and RB Leipzig. Here's the fixtures list really quickly again. Refresher: Arminia Bielefeld hosting Borussia Mönchengladbach, Werder Bremen hosting Union Berlin, Cologne hosting Augsburg, Frankfurt hosting Bayer Leverkusen, Hoffenheim hosting Freiburg, Hertha Berlin hosting Schalke, and Stuttgart hosting RB Leipzig. Of course, before the two games tomorrow are going to be Borussia Dortmund facing Wolfsburg at the Signal Iduna Park, an interesting game to watch really, and Bayern Munich hosting Mainz. This week, I think the return of the Bundesliga, I'm interested, of course, to see which of the two teams that are behind Bayern is going to, look stronger to at least give Bayern a good run for their money in the title race this season. For Bayer Leverkusen, of course, it's they just have their undefeated record shattered before the holidays, before the break in the Bundesliga, at the hands of Bayern Munich, and most experts probably agree that Bayer Leverkusen shot themselves in the foot, including myself, really. In that review, I was like, Bayer Leverkusen handed the victory to Bayern Munich, more or less, by having a defensive shambolic performance overall. The two goals were pretty much, giveaways from the Bayer Leverkusen defense more than anything else. Their form was incredible, undefeatable this season. They were playing some of the best football they had. They were very interesting heading into that fixture against Bayern, and everybody expected a sort of a surprise, really. Everybody was keeping their fingers crossed that there could be a surprise, that Bayern could lose that game against Leverkusen and we could have a title race on our hands. It didn't happen. So Bayer Leverkusen now are returning, trying to keep in touching distance. Of course, 2 points now behind Bayern Munich. They're trying to keep in touching distance against Bayer Leverkusen, of course, against Eintracht Frankfurt away from home. The last couple of games, of course, for Bayer Leverkusen, their form in the league has been incredible. Aside from that loss to Bayern, really, their form has been tremendous in the league. They have been winning they've been winning, at a certain point their form was even better than of Bayern, really. Bayern have drawn a couple of games the last couple of weeks, and then, of course, and then Leverkusen were winning all of those games. So they were entering this game against Frankfurt with redemption, and also trying to keep again in touch with Bayern Munich at the top. I think Peter Bosz and Bayer Leverkusen this season have been doing a tremendous job of that, and probably they deserve to have a title race, deserve to be contenders. But obviously, if they're going to be shooting themselves in the foot again and again in other games, not just against Bayern but against other opponents, it will be hard for them. And Eintracht Frankfurt are not exactly the easiest of opponents, really, despite how much that table position would tell you. They are 17th, yes, but I don't think that their position on the table tells the whole story, because they've drawn 8 times this season. They lost only twice, but they drawn 8 times, which is a horrible thing to happen for a club to draw 8 times, really. They're the teams with the most draw in the Bundesliga this season, which it takes points, really. It's bleeding points when you think about that. Draws are sometimes worse than losses in the fact that you're bleeding points continuously when you don't need to, and that's what Eintracht Frankfurt have been about this season, bleeding points. Of course, the losses, one of them was against Bayern 5-0, so you don't really think yeah, we don't really think that it will be a big problem for them. But I think for Eintracht Frankfurt, they have a tremendous squad. I think they have some of the best players in the Bundesliga. Really, I still incredibly think that Daichi Kamada is absolutely underrated. I think that guy should deserve a little bit more attention as far as the best playmakers in the Bundesliga go. Eintracht Frankfurt, they have a hard game, but I think they will give Bayer Leverkusen a real tough test as well. Even, again, their position on the table might not tell you the whole story. The other top table side, of course, in the Bundesliga, that is in action on Saturday, it is RB Leipzig travelling to face Stuttgart, of course. This is another interesting game as well, considering that Stuttgart are 7th on the table with 18 points. Their results in the last couple of games have been interesting. They lost once in the last 5, but also they drawn against Union Berlin. Of course, they have incredible victories against Dortmund, away from home, 5-1. That victory, of course, that brought the end to the Lucien Favre era at Borussia Dortmund. Stuttgart now, I think they've been playing some of the best football this season. It does look more or less really that that Bayer Leverkusen, that Stuttgart are forgetting already about the setbacks of the last couple of seasons, where they were battling for relegation and they were battling for just keeping themselves in the Bundesliga picture and playing playoff fixtures against Union Berlin. It's an interesting game in the way that everybody's looking at Leipzig, but I think we should look at Stuttgart as well. We should give them a little bit of a credit because of the season they've been having so far. Again, winning against Dortmund 5-1 at Signal Iduna Park. It's not any team that does that. It should be a team that knows what to do. And Stuttgart this season seem to know what to do under Mazzaro. He's really doing really well. They have an incredible also couple of players. Silas Mangatuka, that guy is going to be in demand. Do not really try to underestimate it, undersell it to me. Mangatuka is going to be a priority for some clubs in the next summer, of course, if he keeps on giving. He's already have 8 goals and 3 assists in 14 appearances with Stuttgart this season, which is very interesting of a stat for a player of his age, of course, 21 years of age, for the Congolian striker. I like to see these sides that, Stuttgart, of course, are the stalwarts of the Bundesliga. One of the stalwarts of the Bundesliga. They are a team that had past the glories in the Bundesliga. They played in the Champions League. They know the big stage, so to speak. But they fell off the grace in the last couple of seasons, of course. Relegation battles, saving themselves barely in the last couple of seasons, then relegating completely. It just doesn't make sense. But again, the focus is more or less on Leipzig, who are doing well, undefeated in the last 5, of course. A draw against Köln in the middle of that, it was unexpected, but they had their form back. They defeated Augsburg before the break 3-0, and they are always in a touching distance with Bayern Munich at the top. Julian Nagelsmann now and Leipzig are in the business end of the season. Now it is the do or die kind of matches, and it starts with the game against Stuttgart away from home. He knows that he needs to do more in order to keep, a realistic chance of him winning the title with RB Leipzig, because he has a lot on his plate. Champions League round of 16 coming against Liverpool. It's not an easy game, absolutely not. It's a hell of a game against Liverpool. Will be for Julian Nagelsmann. It's going to be a real tester. He still has the Bundesliga big players to also face. He has he's going to be hosting, of course. He's going to be hosting Bayern. He's going to be still has a game against Borussia Dortmund, of course, and who's going to be travelling to Bayer Leverkusen in the second phase of the season. So there's still a host of big games for RB Leipzig to define their season, but the game against Stuttgart is hard for Julian Nagelsmann, and he needs to be alert, I would say, to the possibilities of not a banana skin slip, because Stuttgart are not bad this season. Again, they're doing really, really fine, and they are in a very, very comfortable place on the table. But I think it should be mentioned, really, it should be said that RB Leipzig are now a big team in Germany. I mean, more or less. They are hated by some fan base because of the whole Red Bull thing, but I think they are now one of the major players in the Bundesliga, and they will be that, I think, for the next couple of years. There will be a destination, of course, a marketable destination, I would say, for players to go there in the Bundesliga as well. So you expect Leipzig now to start carrying themselves like a proper big club and try to stamp their authorities on every match they're in. The two big boys continue to play on Sunday. Dortmund, of course, host Wolfsburg, and Bayern Munich hosts Mainz. For Bayern Munich hosts Mainz, I don't think that this game, it might be straightforward. You might think, well, yeah, but Bayern are going to be winning. But, it's easy. It's Mainz. They're going to be relegated and they will get a drubbing and whatever, but this is not about winning against Mainz. This is about staying at the top and making a statement for Bayern. 2020 has been tremendous for Hansi Flick and for Bayern. The club won every title they were in. They won the quintuple. They're going for the World Cup in Qatar in February. So they need to leave a good gap, enough of a secure gap before they go to that World Cup in Qatar. Because they're going to be missed probably 2 games around that time, I think, of the year. Obviously, they're going to be playing a game before they go, but I think they would be missing a couple of games as well. So they need to leave, the closest, the furthest, possible and the most secure gap possible in order to avoid any kind of troubles when they return from said World Cup. For Borussia Dortmund, it's all about regaining momentum now before the break. Of course, they drawn level against. They lost to Union Berlin, and of course there was the cup game ahead of the break against Eintracht Braunschweig. So at least that was a victory for them before the break, giving them a little bit of momentum. They're entering this game with no Torgan Hazard. Haaland still questions about his fitness. Yusufa Moukoko is going to be injured, which is just a shame. I mean, the guy is a youngster, really. He's just been with the first team and he's already injured. It feels really weird and bad. For Wolfsburg, of course, they were missing Weghorst, they're missing Edmir Hamadi, so that it is going to put a damper as well on Wolfsburg. They are a really, really good side until the break, and until before the break, until a couple of weeks before the break, they were undefeated, and they are playing again some of the best football as well in the Bundesliga. They are a decent side under Glasner, and that is and this is a game again. This is a game where you need to watch it if you have free time and you're a Bundesliga fan. You need to watch this game, Dortmund-Wolfsburg. It's absolutely crucial watch, I would say, if you love brilliant and beautiful football. Moving on, and now let's go back and retrospectively talk about the games of the Premier League yesterday. Of course, 2 games took place yesterday in Everton hosting West Ham and United Aston Villa. Of course, West Ham managed to defeat Everton, managed to shock Everton 1-0 very late, really late in the game at the 86th minute. Thomas Souček scoring the winning goal for West Ham, and this is going to be really bad for Everton, who just about found their form in the Premier League. Really, they were close to the table, to the top of the table. Really, they were second, I think, before the break, before the Christmas, period. They were looking decent, returning to their form, having a couple of victories back to back, and trying to fix the problems of the past and trying to get themselves on the right track. But this result is going to be bringing them down once again, and probably putting more doubts into Carlo Ancelotti's mind about his side this season. They were the better side in this game, and I think the trait about the games that Everton won as of late in the Christmas period was the fact that they weren't the better side, that they were the underdogs, so to speak, or they were the side with less possession, less shots, less chances. In this game, it was different. It was them with the most. It was them with the most possession. They had, I think, opportunities to score. West Ham had more dangerous opportunities, but I mean, Everton should have been in control of the game, really, considering that it's at home. Again, I mean, it makes no difference in the big scheme of things, really, that it is at home or not, because there was no fans. But I think they should have dominated the game. They should have gotten themselves the victory, I think. But West Ham, a decent side, as I mentioned yesterday, a really good side under David Moyes. They know how to get what they need out of games, it seems, and probably they could finish even higher on the table, really. 26 points. I mean, there is like five teams above them with the same tally. Again, Man City with 2 games in hand in between those, of course, 1 game in hand for both Villa and Spurs, so it's not like exactly a very comfortable situation for West Ham at the moment. Big victory again for West Ham, puts them at 10 points, of course, gets them right above the relegation, not above relegation, but above Leeds United at the table and into 10th. Moving on to the other game, of course, taking place on Saturday, and it was Manchester United versus Aston Villa. This game, as I mentioned, this was probably, again, I would stress that enough, United's best game this season. This was United's most tactically apt game of the season, really. The use of Pogba as a sort of a number 10, a double number 10 of sort. It almost felt like a 4-2-2-2 with Freddie McTominay as a double midfield partnership, Pogba and Fernandes in front of them, and then you have Rashford and Martial. Aston Villa were not exactly, we're not exactly bad, but I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer just about outsmarted Dean Smith in terms of his tactics. He was playing practically, I would say, playing with a 4-1-4-1 almost, with Pogba and Fernandes probably playing the same area, adding more bodies in forward for the attack, and really, trying to capitalize on the spaces and trying to close on the spaces behind the midfield duo, of course, in Aston Villa of John McGinn and Douglas Luiz, and they managed to do that. Really, the goal, I think, was a testament for doing that. John McGinn got pulled out of possession by the movement from Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Marcus Rashford on the right, and Martial, of course, heading the ball in. Again, as I mentioned in the review, probably the goal is a little bit of responsibility of the defenders in Tyrone Mings and Ezri Konsa, because I'm sure that Ezri Konsa or Tyrone Mings, one of them, could have at least done something a little bit better, and they could have, they could have taken the ball away before Martial heads it, because I think that was as easy of a header as anyone could get. Like, this was not a header that Martial tried to break free of the marking and tried to do a lot of effort to do that. He didn't do that. He actually basically just put his head onto the ball, directed it into the net. Emiliano Martinez probably should have done better as well, should have read the angle a little bit more better, but again, at that close of range, you don't expect a quick reflex from the goalkeeper. Man United ended the first half having a lead, but again, just like a Chelsea game for Aston Villa, they come back early on in the second half. They started strong and they equalised before the hour mark, but that equaliser doesn't last long. And again, I'm going to say it, that was not a penalty for Man United. I don't think that it deserves to be a penalty. I mean, there is like the slightest of contacts on Paul Pogba's leg, but again, it's like he tripped himself, basically. Okay, it's like he tripped himself. Like, how minimal the contact was there? Like, it was basically sort of, I don't know. Like, it is horrible in my opinion. Of a decision. Yes, Michael Oliver was close, and he may be misled again on first viewing. But how are you going to be misled when you have VAR? again, I think Man United overall, aside from the penalty, really, I would say they deserve to win because they managed the game really well. They put Aston Villa under pressure when it was needed, but Aston Villa also put them under pressure when it was the opportunity. I remember Saka didn't have the best defensive games really against Grealish and Origi. The midfield duo of Fred and McTominay didn't exactly click. I think McTominay didn't have the greatest of games on the far side. The defensive department of Man United, I mean, probably the best thing about it is David De Gea because he pulled incredible saves yesterday, but I don't think anything else would stand out in that defence. Probably a refreshment is needed for that Man United defence. Of course, this victory puts Man United joint top alongside Liverpool heading into the rest of the fixtures, of course. 33 points with one game in hand, in fact, for Manchester United because they still to play Burnley, and that game is going to be on January 12th, 5 days before the game against Liverpool at Anfield. This is going to be big. I mean, this could be a title decider, quote unquote, like shaping the race. We all said that about Tottenham Liverpool, how that is going to be shaping the race, but also I think the Man United Liverpool game is going to be shaping the title race in the Premier League. A quick, of course, look at the fixtures of today in the Premier League. 4 matches are going to be played today. Tottenham host Leeds United, very interesting game to watch. Crystal Palace hosting Sheffield United. Brighton hosting Wolves 6:30, and the night match, the late night fixture, is West Brom hosting Arsenal. Let's move on. And we'll finish with a quick talk, of course, about La Liga. It returns, of course, today as well. The match day 17th in La Liga kicks off today with 4 fixtures on the list, of course. Villarreal, Levante, Betis hosting Sevilla in the Andalusian derby, Getafe hosting Valladolid, and Real Madrid hosting Celta Vigo, of course. A tricky game for Real Madrid. I mentioned that yesterday, of course, on the preview episode of the show. It's a tricky game for Real Madrid, especially after the draw against Elche. That probably would put a lot of doubts into the minds of the Real Madrid players, really, because they have been going on a good form, having, racking a couple of victories after the slump that they were in at the beginning of the season. But the draw against Elche, also the last couple of performances, I would say, not just the draw against Elche, but the performances themselves against Eibar and Granada, they weren't exactly that perfect. Against Athletic Bilbao as well, they weren't exactly that perfect. So I don't think Real Madrid are exactly in the safest of places, and also considering that there is a gap to fill at that top of the table, because Atletico Madrid have 2 games in hand, and they will play them eventually, so that might add a little bit more pressure to Real Madrid, because it would open a little bit more of a gap, for Atletico Madrid ahead of them. The last couple of games, as I mentioned, Real Madrid, all wins, but not the best form, which is concerning for Zidane. It should be concerning, really, because when you draw against Elche in that manner, when you are dominating the game pretty much, and you are having sort of the more possession, more chances, but Elche somehow find themselves back into the game because of a stupid mistake, I would say, from Daniel Carvajal. A draw again that didn't help them, doesn't come at the rightest of times, really, when everything is about gathering momentum heading into the new year, heading into the business end of the season. As I mentioned, the Champions League campaign is going to be continuing back in February and what have you. So that is about it. That is about, that is about what I'm going to say for Real Madrid. I reckon it's going to be an interesting game against the Celta Vigo side that also found its form in La Liga as of late, really moving up the table. Surprisingly, they stand now at 8th, which is not bad considering where they were at the start of the season. They were really suffering. The relegation was all over, I think, their plans for the season, but they turned it out. They turned it all on, and they flipped the switch, and they now stand in a really tough, start a really good position again for them. Both teams with the same form, really. One draw in the last 5 and 4 victories. But again, it's all about the performances for Real Madrid. Real Madrid do not need to just look at the numbers and say, oh, fine. You look at the big number. Again, Atletico Madrid are 35 points ahead you on the table with 2 games in hand. So that might play a big factor. I think, in my opinion, I would say the title race might be over clinically, but it's just the fact that Atletico Madrid didn't play the 2 games that they have to play. So overall, this might be the end. Like this couple of weeks' time in Spain around the Super Cup and what is going to be happening afterward probably might be the end of the Laliga title race already. But it's just the fact that Atletico Madrid didn't play their games, the games that they have in hand. Speaking of Atletico Madrid, of course, the fixture wraps on Sunday. They face Alaves. Also, Athletic Club hosts Elche, Sociedad hosts Osasuna, Eibar hosts Granada, and Barcelona in, again, a tricky game. As per usual, as it is for them this season, they go away to Huesca, bottom of the table, but not by any means the worst team in the league. They face them away from home, hopefully to get some sort of momentum back after that horrendous draw against Eibar before in the last time out. I mean, it really looks like Barcelona this season are struggling. I mean, if you didn't figure it out, they are. But they are sort of. I mean, they had a couple of victories in the last 5 games. Like, they're not necessarily losing, but they're losing points as well. A couple of draws against Valencia and Eibar, and both of those draws coming at home, which is horrible when you think Barcelona should be comfortable at the Camp Nou because they know the stadium, they know how to move in it, they can sort of do all of the triangle squares that they usually do. But it really holds again the pattern against them that it looks like they're going to be struggling everywhere, home or away. Again, the draw against Eibar, I think, has been terrible because they could have easily won the game. Again, easily won the game. It's not like the game against Valencia where they struggled to score and make chances, and Valencia had danger chances on goal. Eibar were tame in the second half, I would say. Yet, they scored by a ridiculous mistake from Barcelona's defence. So everything is expected, of course, from Barcelona. They're going to be still missing, of course, Piqué, Sergio Roberto and Ansu Fati for the long-term injuries. But aside from that, everything is fine. They should have a full squad to choose from. Messi should be returning. Probably he should be starting and he should be saving them once again. That's it, of course. A quick refresher, quick reminder of the Liga table before we go. Atletico Madrid 35 points, 33 for Real Madrid. Sociedad 29, Sevilla 26, as well as Villarreal 25 for Barcelona at 6th, 24 for Granada, Celta Vigo 23, 19 for both Cadiz and Betis. Cadiz, of course, facing Valencia on Monday to finish the round. Real Betis with 19, 18 Levante, as well as Athletic Club and Deportivo Alaves, 17 with Getafe, Elche 16, 16 for Eibar, Valencia 15 for Valladolid as well, 15, 13 Osasuna, Huesca with 12 points at the bottom of the table. That's it. I'm going to be talking about Serie A tomorrow. I'm going to be giving them pretty much the whole episode. I'm going to be talking something else as well. I'm going to be reviewing, of course, what's happening all together in the leagues. And I'm going to be giving the longest section for Serie A, hopefully, on the tomorrow episode. That's it for the episode. Like, share, comment on this video. What do you think about the Bundesliga? What do you think of what is happening in the Premier League, the Serie A, La Liga? Tell us about it in the comments below. Share, of course, the podcast. Subscribe to the channel. Enable notifications to receive the updates. Help us reach 500 subscribers mark. Again, for the moment, Site PSP on Twitter. Follow me there. Bitch Circle on Instagram. Listen to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you can get it from. I was your boy, the HOD of the PSP. And until the next time, I'll be seeing you soon. Goodbye.